Okay. Hello, dear friends. Good afternoon. Such a beautiful, beautiful afternoon. So I came here and I met the most important person in this place. Okay. And later on, you will see the video we had with. I just do a bump up interview, and we will talk about the story of this place in more detail a bit later. Here is it.
So my name is Christina Perino. I'm Senior Recreation Coordinator for the City of Mountain View. And I've been working with the house with the city for about a little less than 20 years. I supervise the operations and maintenance of the home. We normally have volunteers leading tours and are always looking for new volunteers.
What's something that you are proud of doing this thing and connecting anything? Yes.
Oh, well, I just love that it's a community resource. We have people come from all over the world. We just had someone from India. We have someone from Seoul, South Korea. We have people of all ages, children to older adults, who sort of find this place as a refuge, a place that you can come to enjoy the outdoor surroundings, but also sort of step back in time and learn about how life was back then. Hopefully some of the children or people are inspired to first of all realize that history is real, that some of the people in the books that you read about, that they really did exist, but also the idea of preserving history is so important. And so hopefully those people that come to visit will leave their own mark again one day.
Exactly. We do not have 2,000 years history, things like that, but there is not any less significance. It's equally important. And this is the story. You can see, you can touch, and you can still talk to the people connected. It's so fun.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you could come. The ship he took from Germany went all the way around Cape Horn. So once he made it to San Francisco, he worked on a bay steamer up in San Francisco, eventually made his way down here, and he established what was called Rengstorff Landing, a place where these flat-bottom vessels would be piled high with materials like hay, grain, and lumber. There's a picture in the other room of an excavator that Henry actually he designed to help clear the channels of water. And back then, this land here at Shoreline was called the swamp. It went all the water, winding waterways went all the way to kind of where the entrance is here at Shoreline. That's where the scows would drop off their wares, and Henry charged people money to store those goods in his warehouses.
Did he guide the way? Because the water is not, if you are from other place, you do not know the road of the water, the waterway and the bars. Did he guide water or kind of a pallet?
I don't know if he necessarily did. He was more the businessman. But there were landings, is what they were called, all up and down the San Francisco Bay. And so I don't know how you would have known. I'm sure there was mapping back then. Or there was, in fact.
And how many landings in this area? From San Francisco.
So here's a whole book about the scow schooners of San Francisco Bay by Roger Olmsted, and I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head, but there
this is quite an important landing, Mountain View.
Well, I can only presume that the hay was used to feed the cattle and the horses.
Yeah.
The horses pulled the carriages. So to a certain extent, the hay was like gasoline of today.
Yes.
Right? The wood was used, or lumber was used to build early Mountain View. Right?
Yeah.
So they also would have probably picked up wine from this region and then delivered it up to San Francisco or other parts of the bay.
How interesting. Is there a train at that time in Mountain View?
I forget what year the train came in, but there is, so first you had the water transport, then the train came in, and at one point I actually was researching, it was before it was called, it's the San Jose Mercury News now.
Yes, yes.
But back then, I was some of their early articles. I found one about Henry Rengstorff.
Wow.
It was a story about how they were thinking about building a local bridge. And he was against the building of the bridge. It turns out it had to have been the son, Henry Andrew Rengstorff.
Yes.
Based on the year. But at that time, by then cars had been invented. And so to have greater access, it would have then affected his business.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
how interesting.
So I'll tell you a couple stories about the house.
Yes.
And what had happened is after the family lived in it, it became a rental unit. And at one point there was a fire. So I actually just met a man who grew up in Palo Alto, and he said that he had once been in the house because the house after the family lived in it, it became a rental unit. After the fire, it laid abandoned. People went to parties at the Rengstorff house. Probably were squatters if they didn't have a place to sleep. And here you can see all of the graffiti, the major disrepair of the house. This is a picture moving over a bridge. But what had happened is this man, Glenn Lyles, was the Shoreline Division manager at the time. There was a group of local citizens who fought to save the home. And so, when the city finally agreed, it was his job to move the house the first time. It sat out in a field for about a decade, and then eventually they came up with the plan. The plan was that the downstairs would be historic home, upstairs city offices and city staff. And then what we do, the third use of the home is that we do weddings and special events, and the garden is also open to the public at other times. But so that was the plan that he presented before City Council when he was asking for $1.25 million. Now that the house has been here 30 years since that day, or longer, we're already talking about, do we need a re-restoration? Because, it's going to need a new roof, new floors, different things like that. So as an aside, I actually got to help move the windmill that's outside. Here you can see what's called a water tank. We call ours the tank house. But there's a kind of cool story. If you wanna just get a look at that. So the tank house was built to look like a water tank, but it's really just used for storage of, for decorating for the holidays or whatever. But the windmill has a story that it basically moved around town as well. It was originally kitty-cornered from the Rengstorff property, which is down the road, right? the Chavez family owned that windmill.
Oh.
And when they decided, we don't really need this anymore, there was a man named Dave Schmitz in Los Altos. He had an old pumpkin patch. Do you remember that place? Yeah. And so the windmill was there for quite some time. When Dave eventually decided to sell his land, then the Friends of Our House took it on as a project.
Oh, okay.
The city helped move the windmill. It also sat out in a field for a while. Eventually we had to rebuild the structure.
Oh.
But you can see that the fan is spinning, and there's see the red pump down there. The pump doesn't work anymore, but it tells the story of how water would have been brought into the home or sent out to the gardens or the fields. So
that part.
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting.
It's where the women would do their handicrafts. We have an example here of so say for example you had a seamstress, and she went to buy, pay good money to buy the material to sew a new dress, but you had leftover scraps. So you would save the scraps to create something like this. It's called a crazy quilt.
A crazy quilt.
And it turns out this dress was constructed by a local seamstress. It's the same lady who made these drapes.
Wow.
This crazy quilt was donated by a lady in Los Altos. So I'm sort of starting to tell you the story of how the house was recreated.
Yes.
This is a picture of the grandson standing next to the original fireplace. But when I first started working here, I was looking through the full, files upstairs, and I found the catalog that this fireplace mantle was chosen out of. So really a lot had been removed, and the house was very damaged before it was restored. We know the family had wallpaper, but all of this wallpaper is from a company called Bradbury and Bradbury. They're located in Benicia, California. And they don't do tours, but I got my volunteers in a long time ago. It was one man just doing the layers of color.
Wow.
And all of the wallpaper that you see in the home sort of reflects the idea of bringing the outdoors in.
Yes.
So winding waterways, wild reeds and irises. The attention to detail is kind of cool. There's this dragonfly and spiderweb pattern up here. You see it on the ceiling?
Yeah.
There you go. And so, a couple other things. These chairs are original family furnishings. But you can see there's a burn right here.
Yes.
They left that burn for historic integrity. We know there was a smoker in the family, but we don't know for sure that he created this burn.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, you kind of get the idea of how things were collected over time. I actually got this parlor croquet set off of eBay. The architect of the restoration donated that exquisite clock. This chair was donated to the Friends of Our House, but no one donated a doll. So we sat around the table and talked about, well, what would a doll have looked like back then? And I know the lady who sewed the doll, in fact. We even have a collection of old-time stereopticon cards. And when the children or whomever would look through the viewer, the image becomes somewhat 3D. One thing that's cool about this image is it says ship entering the Golden Gate, but there's no bridge. So we have a collection of all of these cards, and
that's before Golden Gate Bridge.
And if when I looked through the collection of the stereopticon cards, I noticed like oh, there's a child in Peru, and this is another part of the world. So people back then, they didn't just jump on a plane and, go travel the world. This was introducing them.
Different part of the world.
Yeah.
Different.
So I'm bringing you into the formal parlor. This is where the family would have entertained their guests. And they were the first in Mountain View to have electricity. So this fixture here, you'll notice that some bulbs are pointed down, the other bulbs are pointed up.
Yeah.
And the bulbs pointed up were actually for backup gas. So if if he was the first in Mountain View to have electricity, may not have been very reliable back then. So if the lights went out, you could use these knobs to use the backup gas. And then above is what's called a medallion. A lot of times they'll just be painted white in a Victorian home. And it would collect the soot from the backup gas. Ours is painted really nicely, but if you wanted to repaint the medallion, that was going to be easier than having to repaint the whole ceiling. So a couple of things. This was again Henry. Here's his wife Christine. She's seated next to the original settee, but that settee, which looks amazingly similar, was just donated to the restoration project. Henry Andrew Rengstorff is the son. And he had a street named after him because he owned a land plot in that part of Mountain View. John Henry had become a commissioner in Alaska, and see he has nice facial hair, but over there he kind of cleans up more nicely. He actually painted the paintings behind you, and had become a commissioner up in Alaska. Maybe it was inspired by his time up there, but we don't know for sure. An artist? Yeah, he painted those. Yeah. Wow. So you'll. So facial, you can see the different facial hair, the different hairstyles, the different clothing that they wore. I don't tell stories of every family member, but little Charlie died very early of scarlet fever. And there's a few pictures of Elise. She's was one of the daughters. She attended Mills College in Oakland. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful college. Yeah.
And she was actually the last child to live in the home. So she inherited the home. Her siblings inherited some of the family's wealth. So I don't know who got the better end of the deal. But when she passed away, she handed the home down to Perry Ascom, the grandson of the family. And remember I showed you the burn in the chairs over there? Yes. He was the smoker. Again, we don't know for sure who created the burn. He died in 1961, but this is completed in 1962. And he also is shown here wearing this red mask and cape. Because he was a light opera singer, and he sung the operetta called The Desert Song. The character name was the Red Shadow, and that's why he had the cape. Wow. I guess I forgot to tell you, the family originally would have sang songs around the piano in this room. We don't know for sure, but we suppose that they might have had something like an Edison machine.
It still works.
Yeah, and I always forget. But apparently if we had another part, you would still be able to record through the horn. Wow. Someday someone's going to research that for me.
Yes, this one I have seen.
So you have what came after the Edison was the Victrola or phonograph.
Yeah.
This is kind of volume control. Okay. This is how it was. You were supposed to put the lid down when you played it. But so see how there's a hole here?
Yeah.
That's meant for a crank.
Oh, okay.
And the crank is
Yes.
what then turns the record around.
Yes. There are wheels to control the speed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I was little, I had a record player, but mine was electric.
Wow.
So
mine also.
Yeah.
Yes, we had.
So let's see. Well, let me tell you about this first. So see this album here. There's a famous jazz musician. His name is Dave Brubeck, and he was part of the Dave Brubeck Quartet. Right around the time that I first started working here, the Friends of Our House, the group that fought to save the home, they were doing some genealogy research, and they just came across this connection here that Dave Brubeck, whose brother's middle name was Rengstorff, he actually was proven to be a descendant of Henry's brother. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
My predecessor, Ginny Kaminsky, and Mary Boudrias, who did the genealogy research, they got to meet Dave in Redwood City when he was performing. And he said, I always would pass the letter says, I would think of my brother when he passed the sign on the highway, and he'd wonder about the connection. It says, you have solved that puzzle for me. And so it was kind of a cool connection.
Yeah.
But as for the direct lineage, there were 7 children, 3 daughters who had children, but none of the sons. So what that means is that the Rengstorff name did not pass down directly.
Yeah.
I've talked quite a bit about Perry Ascombe.
Yes.
He died in 1961. His brother had a small part in a John Wayne film.
Okay.
And off of Earl Ascombe's line comes this lady, Jody Ascombe. And that's her stepsister, Shelley. I had tea with them quite some time ago. But they are, living relatives. They just have a different last name. As for this room, it is it's our understanding from Francis Ascombe is that this was really used as an office. The people who did the restoration put a black fireplace in here, kind of paying homage to the idea of a men's parlor, that men would adjourn for port and cigars. But to our understanding, we have this business ledger here, and this is a copy of the original shipping activities back in the 1880s. Our understanding is that the business operations took place out of this room. So we have an old time telephone. We have this board that kind of explains how you would connect a telephone via the switchboard operator. But it also shows what's called the party line system, so that everyone who lived kind of on the same telephone wire could listen in to a telephone call. There's more to it, but I'm going to summarize for this video. Here you have an old typewriter. This one's kind of cool because it has the lowercase, the uppercase. Someone noticed that there's 2, 3, 4, all of these numbers here, but there's no number 1. So they may have used the L or
to save some.
Or the the L or the capital I.
Yes.
And but remember how paper would go
through
the typewriter. You start typing, the letters appear right away.
Yeah.
Back in the early days, you would, if you made a mistake, you might have to start over. But then they came up with a way, sort of like whiteout, of yesteryear, they have these little tabs, and you could use that tab. When I learned on the electric typewriter, I would just back up and smack the same letter in like the whiteout function, basically. Yes. And so obviously there's no screen, there's no memory, no ability to reprint what you just, you know.
You get it right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You get it wrong. Wrong.
And one little kid told me that you also cannot play Minecraft on typewriters. And I was like, you are so right. Now I know. A lot of people notice the birds and wildlife in this room. They were found at shoreline, therefore not intentionally killed. They were preserved using a method called taxidermy.
Yes, taxidermy.
And this little guy is kind of special. It's called a burrowing owl. Oh. It's a species of special concern, but the local organization called Bird Alliance of Silicon Valley, they are advocating that the bird be added to the endangered species list. So we don't know the results of that quite yet. We also have the red fox, which is a non-native species, so not a good thing to have in a wildlife and recreation area. This is actually a golden eagle, and but apparently by seeing the tips on the wings there, that means that it's a juvenile. It would have grown even larger had it lived longer. So I usually end my tour by talking about this painting. It was done by an artist named Howard A. Streit, and apparently he was collected by Mrs. Leland Stanford. When we researched his work, we learned that when he painted in sort of a seance state. He believed that master artists came through him. Whether you believe in the spirit world or not. Yes. In the Victorian era, they were learning all about the physical world, biology, botany. There was a fascination with the spirit world back then. And there are some stories of the Rengstorff house possibly being haunted, but I've worked here a long time, so far so good. Just to kind of wrap things up, I think I told you before about, oh my gosh, what's his name? Glenn Lyles. He was the city's shoreline division manager.
The first one, yes.
Did I tell you? Yeah. So when he originally went before city council, I feel like I'm telling the story again. But anyway, he
presented the plan.
He asked for the plan. So downstairs is historic home. Upstairs now is city offices, and then the gardens are available for public use, but also weddings and special events. So so.